Hello and welcome to the Photo Brigade podcast. I'm Robert Kaplan, and I'm really excited to have a special guest today, Alyssa Adams. How you doing, Alyssa?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm really thrilled. Thank you,
Yeah,
Robert.
I was trying to get you on for a while and finally convinced you to get on here.
Yeah, because you're going to do most of the talking.
Yes, that's true.
Right?
That's true. Well, I'm going to prompt you, and you're going to do some talking too. But for most people know who you are. A lot of people may not know you. A lot of students coming up. A lot of those that are listening to this podcast. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your background before we get started and jump into the workshop, which is what most of people know you from. So. You are currently a photo editor at TV Guide, is that correct?
That's right.
And you're deputy photo editor.
Deputy photo editor, East Coast deputy photo editor.
Oh, okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Wow. How long have you been there?
A long time.
A long time?
Yes.
You don't even want to say it, huh?
No, I don't even want to say it out loud.
Okay. Well, so you have quite an extensive background in photography and also design.
Right.
So I just want to, can you talk a little bit to us about sort of what got you into photography in the first place? I mean, were you a designer before you were in photography?
Yeah. I was a graphic designer when I first moved to the city. Out of school, I went to Chicago for about 2 years, and I came to New York City.
Uh-huh.
And I worked for a firm called Carbone Smolin Associates. People in the photo world may know Rick Smolin, and I worked for his sister, Leslie.
Okay.
So it was Carbone Smolin, Ken Carbone and Leslie Smolin. And I was a graphic designer there for 10 years in New York City. And that's actually how I met Eddie. You've heard of the Day in the Life projects.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, right,
yeah.
the big photo books.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so that was Rick's project. And in the beginning, Leslie's office was designing them. So I met Eddie at David Cohen's birthday party. And that's, through the Day in the Life project, because our office was designing the books.
Yeah, the Day in the Life project, because I was actually, ended up doing like America 24/7 also? Was that the same?
Yeah.
Not the same year,
Right,
of course,
right,
but I mean, this was years back.
Right.
So I guess we didn't mention your late husband, Eddie Adams.
Right.
You're talking about meeting him, and you're also co-founder of the Eddie Adams Workshop, which is, this amazing photography experience for early professionals and students alike.
Right.
Uh-huh. So let's talk a little bit about the Eddie Adams Workshop because I've never had so much fun, been so exhausted, been so inspired by an experience really in my life. And I want to talk about that. Actually, before I pull up recent photos, let's go ahead and look at some photos from when you guys bought the barn. So you and Eddie, let's talk about this.
This is before I met Eddie. Eddie's owned the barn since 1976.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
And I met him in 1983. So this was... it's so funny because I had never seen these pictures before until like the last workshop when a man that used to work with Eddie, Ron Frehm, sent them to me.
Uh-huh.
And so these are pictures that he took, and this is the closing.
The closing of the barn.
Yeah, the closing of the property upstate. And
this is
for
Eddie
you guys
here.
that don't know, the workshop takes place on a barn up in Jeffersonville, New York, in Sullivan County. And this is Eddie. This was Eddie's first wife, Ann Adams. And you can see he's going, what have I done?
What have I done? I just purchased a barn up in the Catskills.
Right. And here it is. Wow.
Wow. This is amazing because we're going to go through some photos later that shows the barn as it is today.
Right.
But, this is like before everything. This is before any renovations were done.
Right. Yeah. And it was a dairy barn. And the Mall family owned it. And and this is the inside, and you can see how the barn was built in stages, and you can tell by the beams. These are hand-hewn beams, and
awesome.
That looks like that's Eddie directing the work people.
Right, and what's amazing is this is a view from actually where your house is now, the farmhouse is, right?
Right.
And I've got some Instagrams because I ended up producing at this year's workshop, and just seeing this view compared to what it is now. Now you've got a beautiful garden. This building to the left there is actually like a garage / sponsors shed that you guys use now. Yeah, these are just some really amazing photos. Who shot these, by the way?
His name was Ron Frehm.
Ron Frehm. These are great.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Photo Farm.
Photo Farm. So Eddie. Eddie had this dream like a long time ago, like, he purchased this property with the idea of making a photo farm. And he would enlist all of his friends to go up there to work on the barn. Like that's John Philo. He's the guy that won the Kent. He took the Kent State picture.
Right.
And he was also grew up in Eddie's hometown, near Eddie's hometown in New Kensington, PA. So Eddie would enlist John and all of his photo buddies to come up and work on the property. Right
on. Lots of smoking going on in those days.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Wow. So we should back up and say that the Eddie Adams Workshop is every year you guys select 100 of the top early professionals and students, completely based off the merit of their portfolios.
That's right.
And they all come out. It's a free. I should also mention that it's a free, tuition-free workshop, and they all get to come out to this now newly renovated barn. Let's go back to the more recent photos. Well, I'll go there in a second. Let's talk about it a little bit more. So Eddie, when it started in was it 83, 88?
88
was the actual workshop. And was this something that he had the desire to make this workshop happen all the time, or was it something that you guys discussed? Like, what can we do with this barn? Was it intended for this purpose?
No, it was really intended for that purpose, but I it just took him a while to get it to the right state where you could do something like that, and then still, he didn't really have a really concrete plan of how he wanted to do this.
Right.
And just one day we were at some photo workshop, and I said, "Gosh, these workshops are so expensive. It'd be great if you could just do it for free and do it based on the merit." And he already had the idea to do a workshop, but then he was like, "Oh yes, let's do it for free. Let's do it for based on merit." And so, at that time, he was talking to people at Kodak.
At Kodak.
Yeah, and they became our major sponsor. And I just want to shout out to Ray DeMolin, who was the person who greenlighted the project. He just passed away.
Yeah, I saw that on your Facebook post. Yeah. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and so he was between Bill Semenko and Ray DeMolin. They were the ones that put it all together and became our sponsor. And and then Nikon also became a co-sponsor, and they're like, we would have these meetings, and they would go, well, hey, Eddie, why don't, because Eddie said, I want 100 students, and I want to do it like this, and they were going, well, why don't we try like 25 people or 50 people, let's just do it like that. And he didn't. He stuck with 100, and when we didn't know if it was going to go 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, and now we're in our 28th year.
Wow.
But go ahead.
That's amazing to think back that that means that there's been 2,800 early professional students coming through, learning from the best. And my experience from it was not just networking and meeting all of these peers of mine as a student. I went 10 years ago at Barnstorm 17 when I was in college. I went to Ohio University, and I was thrilled to get in. And I guess I never expected the experience, because I when I went into it, I'd heard about it. A lot of students hear through the grapevine what it's all about, but until you're actually there and on the ground and experiencing it, because it's a complete whirlwind. I mean, you break. So let's go through these photos.
Sure.
I'm gonna show these photos as this is the perspective of a team producer. So the first thing that you guys do is collect submissions for the workshop. Everybody submits their portfolios through eddieadamsworkshop.com.
Right.
Correct? And after all these hundreds and hundreds of portfolios are submitted, it goes through a review process. And these photos right here, this is Uncle Jimmy, Jim Colton, who is a great photo editor. He's with Zuma now, and he's directing all of these editors from around the world in New York City that are going in your home, which is actually at the bathhouse in New York. There's all these different levels that I want to talk about, because the bathhouse is something I want to get to. So the first thing we did was edit, go through, and get it down to that 100. It was something out of like 800 or 900 portfolios total, I think. Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or maybe
I
less.
think, yeah, we winnow it down to about like 300, and then we go through that in one day.
Wow. Yeah. And so it was really pretty neat. I mean, this was the first time I took part in this experience, and it was neat because we had iPads and iPhones, and we were watching a slideshow of all the images being put through, and then we could judge based off of a number scale. and it was all tallied for us. And at the very end, it was like, here's the top students, and
Right.
boom, there's your list. It was
that was the first year that happened. It used to be paper and pencil.
paper and pencil, I'm sure. Things have changed. So this is actually the next day. This is a birthday for Cliff Hausner, Pro Photo. But this was the night that we had a producers meeting with all the team producers, because
right.
you break up the workshop into 10 groups of 10.
Right.
And each of those teams has a team producer, which is what I was, a team leader, which is usually like a professional editor, well-known
right.
editor, and then a team leader, which is a well-known photographer. So this was the producers meeting when we actually started drawing team colors, and that's why I have my orange bandana here. That was my team. That was the team I actually was as a student, and I was actually chose when I was producing. So this was that process. We got some cute photos of everyone having fun after they had picked it. Jamie and Ryan, always having good times. Oh, okay. So a few times I went to your farmhouse
right.
to do the producing,
right.
because as a producer, part of our job is to figure out, the assignments that we're going to give these students, because this workshop is broken up into...
It's broken up into a couple of pieces. It's broken up into, there's 10 teams of 10. Everybody gets an assignment. There's a shoot. There's editing process. The whole thing culminates in a show at the end. And in between that, you're listening to speakers.
Mm-hmm. Some of the best speakers in the
right,
world.
Right, yeah.
I mean, some of the
great
speakers, like legends, like Alfred Eisenstadt, Joe Rosenthal, Gordon Parks. I mean, that's just a few, just
right.
a tip of the iceberg.
Right.
So this was actually when I was producing, and I went up to your pond, and I spooked 300 geese out of the pond, and it was probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. And they sure left a mess.
They really do leave a mess all over the place.
These are a couple of my Instagrams.
Gosh, that's great.
Yeah, that was like the night I got
I want that photo.
Yeah, that's an Instagram. It's an iPhone photo, believe it or not. There might have been a little HDR in that
right.
one, but don't tell anyone. This is the angle I was telling you about
right.
earlier. Looking, to the left is the garage, to the right's the barn, and you've got this beautiful new garden here. Is this your garden? Did you build this garden?
Michael Barsda, a friend up there, he built it last year was the first year.
Beautiful.
It was
I love gardens. And this just kind of gives you an idea of what the Catskills are like. This is just shot out in my car while I was going down the road. These beautiful long roads there. So anyways, I'm skipping now to the first day of the workshop when all of the producers and team leaders and everybody got together, and it gets kind of fun. Everybody has a good time. This is Melissa Golden painting nails, her team colors, I believe.
Wait, where is this?
This is at the
the
Days Inn.
Okay.
This is at the Days Inn, actually. Yeah. So
the bar at the Days Inn.
Like I said, this is from my point of view, being a producer at the workshop, and just
you work really hard. I could see that.
Well, this is the calm before the storm, Alyssa, as you know.
I know.
And of course, you got Ab goofing around as usual, and so anyways, this year, what you guys always do is you bring in all these students. They stay usually at the Days Inn or some hotel. Mm-hmm. There's a creepy hotel that's no longer, that was there when I was a student, but and those who were there know what I'm talking about. But this year, you guys decided to bring out the red carpet, which I thought was
that was all Miriam Evers' idea. She's a producer of the workshop,
yep.
And she's a rock star, and she said, we're going to have a red carpet this year.
Yeah, and so this was us putting out the red carpet, waiting for the students to come through, because you always have this tradition of the students being dropped off at the bottom of your driveway, mm-hmm. there, and they come up, and everybody you play a song, you play like a Kodachrome, right. and so this time you guys had this, and every year also what's really funny is you have the black team make a fun video, and so right. These two were king and queen or something along those lines of the workshop this year, and they kind of
that's Miriam Evers and Andre Constantini for everybody.
Yes, yeah. and they also kind of led the workshop, and we're up there kind of getting things together. So, but yeah, this is some shots of the students arriving. I mean, we're talking like 100 of some of the top editors and professional photographers clapping, right. Bringing you guys up there, and you look and you like, oh my gosh, that's so-and-so. That's so, oh my God, they're clapping for me.
Right.
Like, it's incredible. It's an incredible feeling for the students. Yeah. This is actually from a few years back, like 5 years ago, this shot.
And it's always 4 o'clock, so the sun is shining right in your eyes. If you're a student coming up the hill, you can't even see anything.
You can't even see them. And
that's kind of what it looks like.
That's what it looks like as a student coming through. And this is Brad Smith. He was my team leader in the orange there.
Yeah, and this is Lisa Krantz.
Lisa Krantz on the right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, she just won some awards.
World Press, yeah.
World Press Awards, kicking some butt. I mean, and behind him is Al Bello, who's also winning World Press Awards. Everybody in this, institution that is the workshop. So then what happens is we all get together and meet as teams for the first time at the workshop. And so as a producer, I was with the orange team, and so I was with Brad Smith of Sports Illustrated, Al Bello of Getty Images, and this was our team getting to know each other, talking about what we're going to do. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, so then it just jumps into these. This is inside the barn. We were looking at the photos previously.
Right.
And this is inside the barn. You guys have made it so that you can fit, 10 gigantic tables with 10 people around it and have these amazing presentations by the likes of Gregory Heisler and James Nachtwey.
Right. I think
Al Bello.
This was, right.
This was the first night. And then this now comes, I don't know if you've ever seen it from the perspective of a student or a producer before, because this is now back at our hotel.
Right, where everybody gets together and you start planning about how you're going to do your shoot.
Right, we start passing out gear because it's sponsored, and then we have all these assignments where we hand out all these 10 different assignments that I've kind of worked on for the past few months, going upstate and finding assignments.
Right,
for our students.
I don't know how you guys do that. The producers are really the hardest working people because they have to find assignments for each 10 different assignments and a couple of spares.
A lot of the producers also, the amazing thing about it is a lot of the producers are doing it remotely as well.
Right.
Like there's some producers that live in Florida and across the country.
Yeah.
So the ability to find actual assignments that are of interest to students is kind of amazing to me, especially.
But Sullivan County is it's 2.5 hours northwest of the city, and it's really an amazing it's close enough to the city where you have a really good mix of people up there. And then I'm always amazed at what goes on in Sullivan County, and I see it through these photos every year.
Yeah, and this is actually one of a student from, I think this is Barnstorm 21. We went out to a racetrack and I just took some pictures. So you've got Pro Photo out there lending all this gear, and it's an amazing experience because you get to use all this amazing gear, and you also get the help of these people.
And Nikon basically sets up a tech place where you can repair your cameras and get loaners from Nikon.
Yeah, so it's legitimate. It's legitimate. Mm-hmm. We were lucky; we got our own little editing room this year. But this is normally what it's like downstairs. You got all these little editing stations for all of the teams, and everybody groups around and edits their photos from the different assignments and so on. So that's what we're looking at here. And then downstairs you have all these viewing stations for the presentations that are going on upstairs, so everybody can be watching at any point within. And then afterwards, and I tell you what, this was my first time doing portfolio reviews at 1130 Club. I didn't realize I was going to be doing it, but 1130 Club is something that you guys started to give amazing portfolio reviews to all of your students. Basically, you bring in groups of people, groups of editors, groups of photographers, as well as those that are already part of the workshop. And it's just an intense portfolio review that goes late into the evening. This is probably one of the main reasons why everybody has a lack of sleep.
Yeah, and we were just talking about that at a board meeting. We think we're going to start it earlier. We don't
Like
mean
club.
to sleep deprive people. That's not our intention. I think people are just so excited to be there. They're running on adrenaline, and no, we're not trying to deprive people.
No one's
but
trying.
It just
One's
happens.
trying. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's all sorts of talks, and this year was pretty exciting. James Nachtwey came and was actually a team leader. I think that happened sort of last minute.
Yeah, we were surprised. We were happy to have him as a speaker, and then we found out he was going to be a team leader.
What was amazing for me is I've seen a lot of, been to a handful of these workshops, and I've seen a lot of great photographers and people come through, and it's kind of like seeing, I don't know, like a higher being or something come in when these big names come in, and it was like that with Nachtwey. I mean, no one could believe, like, oh, Because I don't think it was advertised that he was even part of it until he just kind of showed up.
Oh, we don't put it out there. We don't put anything out there. You kind of show up, and that's where everybody finds out what happens. And this year, we didn't print a program. We put out an app, and the students got an app with the program on it like 2 days before the workshop. So. Yeah.
That actually is really cool, the app, and I was actually never. Oh, actually, there it was. It was right on my screen right there. But Eddie Adams Workshop app.
If anybody wants to see who was there last year, you can go in and get the app, and it's got all of the bios of the team leaders, and it has all the students' names, and you can kind of get a feeling for who was there. And
check it out.
It's just the program on there.
Eddie Adams Workshop app, and you can search it on
iTunes.
iTunes. I'll put a link on it in the YouTube information below. But then you have these teams like Gregory Heisler is just an amazing, accomplished photographer
and a great teacher, I think.
And a great teacher, because he's up at Syracuse now.
Right. Yeah.
And I actually just worked on a photo shoot with him and Brad Smith for Sports Illustrated.
Oh, big group shot.
The big group shot.
Right.
Yeah, the Boston Marathon cover.
Yeah.
I was doing
great.
documentary and time lapses of it, but I ended up doing a podcast with him. Which, if you're interested in listening to that podcast, it's
I'd love to.
It's audio. It's back on the audio before we went visual here. Nick Ut is always extremely fun. We also did a podcast with Nick.
You did?
Yeah, I did. From the workshop, I did.
Okay.
Not live. I just recorded it.
Right.
But yeah, you can see how everyone gets a little bit tired, takes their naps during break. Got some nice portraits of Nick.
That's great.
Okay, so this is something I wanted to talk to you about. At the workshop every year, you honor Eddie's fallen photographer friends who
from Vietnam,
as well as Eddie himself, who passed away in 2004, I believe it was, which actually was the year that I was my first year. So I unfortunately never was able to meet Eddie, and I just missed him. And it was a very solemn occasion that year because of course it was so fresh. But you guys have this essentially a memorial here. That has the names of these, it's five
photographers.
Five photographers from Vietnam, Eddie's friends. And then you have this, I guess we'll get to that in a few minutes here. But basically you have this great ceremony. Oh, look at these shots.
I know, it's Bill Epridge.
Yeah, Bill Epridge. He recently passed away. Yeah.
Right.
I want to find these... the shots that I was telling you about here.
The memorial shots?
The memorial shots, so we can talk about those a little bit.
Yeah, there were five photographers, Michel Laurent, Kyoichi Sawada, Nick Ut's brother, whose name I can't pronounce, and Larry Burroughs. And
so what happens is there's an intense day of lectures, and then you open the doors and actually you talk about these people. You show a video and you talk about these different photographers, and then everyone's let out of the barn to go collect a yellow balloon. There's James Knockway coming out. This actually was one of my favorite shots at the workshop. And then you all go around this memorial, and there's all sorts of different... I guess there's even an Indian ceremony.
It's like a blessing.
Yeah. Can you give me a little background on the element of the Indian and then the armed forces and all that?
Sure. Well, Eddie, we always include the armed forces in the workshop. So, you'll have 50 students, you'll have 50 professionals, and then we also take military photographers. And Eddie was a Marine. And so that was really important for him to include the military. And so a lot of people that are on the volunteer staff, what we call the black team, are part of the military. And so, and a lot of them were active duty. A lot of them aren't active duty anymore. They've since retired from the services. But they come and they salute. And basically we just wanted a way, a Native American ceremony. I don't know. We've been doing that for about 20 years now. I mean, we've done other things.
It sets the mood,
right.
too. It really does, because there's a drumming, there's sage being burnt, and then usually there's a musical element. You've had Leah Latella at points sing, and others as well. And then you release all of these balloons into the air.
These represent the other photojournalists that have been killed.
So, and then there's this is one that shows you also send up a black one, which is the one that you release. Is that correct?
Right, for Eddie.
For Eddie. And I would imagine that the Sullivan County kind of see this and realize and understand what's going on every year.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, when you see just like hundreds of balloons going in the air.
Oh, it's the Eddie Adams workshop again.
Oh, yeah, the workshop's going on. It was also amazing when I was producing how many people already, oh yeah, we know the Eddie Adams workshop. It seemed, when you have 2,800 students coming through taking pictures,
right?
It's.
Well, and that's why I say, and Sullivan County is really great. I can't say it enough because they always welcome people into their homes. It's a great community.
Right. So yeah, and this is one of the things. It's like you're having dinner. This is Michael Lipp here
and John White
and you're sitting down to have lunch or dinner with these people that you just you don't expect to have these relationships with
right.
and you brush past and you build those relationships here, which is really, really cool. So this last year, this was amazing. The fireworks that you guys had this last year were truly spectacular.
That was a surprise.
Yeah. Oh, that was a surprise.
Yeah.
It was a surprise for you too.
Yeah. That's Miriam again.
Let me go
back.
Red
carpet fireworks.
Oh yeah, she just lets you find out. Okay. So yeah, that's a better shot of the fireworks that were going on. And then we all go to the fire pit. You guys have such a large property that you've got a pond, you've got these hills and woods, and you have this huge open field away from the barn where you guys just have a massive bonfire. And it's pretty epic, I must say.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great to be able to do that. And
have you always been doing these bonfires?
No. Eddie... It started with Eddie because we were celebrating, I don't know if it was a 10th anniversary or whatever. He wanted to have a talent show. So he made all of the photographers and photo editors do a talent show and at a bonfire. And that's how it all started.
Uh-huh.
So
it was,
there were hula hoops. There were like luau's. There were like magic card tricks. There was singing.
Yeah. And just everybody's having a good time because it's almost over at this point too. I think that at this point
it's Sunday night, so I think you've probably finished.
So Sunday was the last day of assignments,
right?
And as a producer, once your students get back from that last assignment,
you can relax and have a beer.
Thank gosh! It's like just the best thing: getting all the gear back, getting
all the students back,
all the students back. Coordinating, because that's one of the hardest things is coordinating all these people, and plus you're in the Catskills, so the reception isn't that great.
Right.
And assignments flake out sometimes, and you have to stress out to get that going. But you have all these tables set up. This is Gregory Heisler with his group, learning all sorts of good stuff. Mickey Osterreicher of the MPPA.
Yeah.
So you guys also have a great affiliation with MPPA, ASMP.
Right.
And which are two great organizations I always like to shout out here on the podcast.
Right, and APA too. So
APA. So check out all of those. We'll put some information down below. So then we do team portraits, and the best team portraits this year have to go to
great.
Melissa Little's team. They used a not a hair dryer,
that's a shop
vac. A leaf blower.
A leaf blower.
A leaf blower to make
figure out how they did that.
To make these ridiculous faces. So even though I wasn't part of the team, I did request to get an epic series of portraits, and I did have one of these up as my Facebook photo, and I don't think my grandmother approved.
Right. Oh, she did or
she
did not?
She did not approve.
Right.
In fact, she thinks I did permanent damage to myself, and I told her, "Don't worry, it was already done way before that."
Yeah. I have my Howard Schatz picture as my Facebook photo.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Did he do the ones with the frames?
He did the ones with the He
did. He used to do
He's
those
done a
for
series.
A while.
Yeah. Last year I think was the first year he wasn't able to come up.
So
to do the portrait.
This is an exciting portion of the workshop that not many people necessarily know about.
Right.
All of the students that come get to they're up for basically awards as part of the workshop.
Well, it's basically we just like to put our money where we like to put our. We like to give the students something as a show of appreciation.
Oh, sure,
and
yeah.
we don't talk about this at all during the workshop. We don't talk about it really outside of the workshop. But I know, no, that's okay. But we try to give them a type of an award in the form of a photo assignment or cash, or in the case of Nikon, they get some really really huge gear.
If you don't want me to talk about this, I can.
Well,
I can
it's
cut
not.
it.
It's not a forte. It's not like why we're really.
Oh,
there.
totally
Yeah,
not. But
yeah, okay.
but it goes to prove how important it is and how amazing it is, this experience, because I got to participate in this portion, but basically everybody puts up names of students that stand out in some way.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean
Right.
like, oh, you did an amazing job on your assignment, but how you present yourself and
Right.
all those different things come
Everything,
into
the work
effect.
that you do there, the work that you bring, what you're like as a person. You know?
So basically, there's like 10 to 20 different awards or whatnot, and we put up names to nominate
people.
the different teams, and then the team leaders say, okay, this is why I think that
Right.
this person should
Right.
get it. And I just have and you're in a room with the best of the best, and
Yeah.
they're debating why their team. It's hot in that room too.
No, it's like a sweat lodge. You come out of there after an hour, and it's like
it's pretty bad. But one of my favorite moments, and I don't think you were here.
No, I didn't see this.
But James Noctway put a student of his that he really was proud of up on a couple of these lists, and the award kept going to somebody else, and you could kind of see and so it got to this last one where he says to everybody, just stops the whole room. He goes, not only did he go out the first day and just kill it, but he went out the second day and he killed it. Never in my entire career have I gone out 2 days in a row and just killed it.
Wow.
It was something along those lines,
Right.
and everybody's just like, "Oh snap!" Award goes, yeah. So that was actually, I think, Jeffrey Basinger that got that award. So I've taught. He spoke here at one of our monthly meetups, and I told that little story. But he's a great shooter. He's out on Long Island.
Oh, great.
Long Island. So, anyways, these are the last few photos going through. But in the end, it turns into like a little bit of a party. It's when we show the team videos, and then everybody gets these different awards, and it's a surprise. It's a complete surprise.
Right.
I think that when I was a student, I got an assignment from Sports Illustrated, and some of these awards, like for instance, an assignment with Education Week. I can't see what that one was.
I can't see what that one is either.
3 sports assignments with Getty Images. Oh,
right. Oh, yeah.
So this is
award show.
It's an award show essentially, and Nick Utt came out with a pizza to kind of make fun of
Ellen at the Oscars.
Yeah, Ellen at the Oscars that year had brought out a pizza guy, and so it was just a comic relief in the middle of it. But assignments to Sports Illustrated, an award from National Geographic, an internship at the White House. The Chris Hondros Fund Award, which is an amazing story. This particular story is quite amazing. Aman, was
right?
it? She basically went to an assignment to take pictures for this workshop, and she was turned away at the door. I believe she's from Gaza,
right?
And she was turned away at the door by the people, claiming like they didn't know who she was. They thought that she was with ISIS,
right.
And very, very like, oh, how could this be? And she, instead of just like being offended and turning around, she stayed there and she talked them through the door until they finally came out, and didn't even make any images that first day. Told her team leaders and everybody about what had happened, and went back the next day with the idea, instead of the story that she was going to do, she wanted to tell the story of what happened to her. Sometimes the photographer becomes the news.
Right.
And so she turned the camera on herself, showed what she looked like outside of their house, and then took portraits of these
of them outside of their house,
of
not
them
inside.
outside of their house,
Mm-hmm.
looking at her,
right.
Looking at the camera as though they were looking at her the day before.
Right.
And that, not just that, but that was part of what it went into her receiving this amazing award.
Yeah, and she was actually supposed to come the year before, but couldn't get a visa. So this.
Oh wow, wow! So wow, that's amazing. So students come from all over the world, and as you can see, one person even gets a Nikon scholarship and just got loaded up with gear. I couldn't imagine being just handed tens of thousands of dollars worth of gear like that. I think he was floored. And then, it all ends in song and dance, of course. And then
a party
afterwards.
Right.
Yep. Good. So I'm not sure if we missed anything. I know I don't think we really missed too much, other than maybe a couple shots of Noctway. Yep. So additionally, I wanted to show this video, and we can talk a little bit about the workshop some more. But this is a video that was taken by a drone.
Right.
Which I guess now there's all this scrutiny over drones. But this kind of gives you a real idea of what the property looks like, what it's like to arrive at the workshop like this. and this is actually playing to Kodachrome, but we can't play it because it's going to be on YouTube, and then they'll take down our video.
Right. Yeah.
So, what have been your, I guess, highlights from this sort of workshop? I mean, it's hard to imagine.
Well, it's like watching people like Joe Rosenthal, who came a couple of times, and like, watching them put together the picture of a reenactment of the flag raising.
Iwo Jima, yeah.
And then watching Gordon Parks on the dance floor. And,
man, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I did dance on a table with Gerd Ludwig.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah. And I think
I
think he was. What do you call it when they carry somebody through the crowd?
Oh, he was like crowd surfing.
Yes, he was. He was crowd surfing.
It gets
at one
crazy,
point. Yeah.
and then there's the 6:30 club or something like that.
That's fairly new.
That's fairly new. And I actually stayed up for it. It was
6:30 a.m. club.
6:30 a.m. club, which means that the last night you stay up, you party all night until 6 a.m. and finally go to bed, which is what I ended up doing. And many of my team members wanted me to stay out because I was getting under the weather that night, and they were poking me, come on, stay out, da-da-da-da. I put them all to shame. I stayed up. They all went to bed except for maybe 2 of them. So.
But for me, just being in the barn and listening to people talk about the work, I'm just, this is going to be the 28th year, and I'm still like awed every time I listen to everybody talk.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about how. Let's go ahead and stop this then. Let's go ahead and talk about how you met Eddie. I'm curious because I know your background. You were at Miramax for a little bit.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what you did there and how you met?
Okay, so I was a graphic designer. I met Eddie through Carbone Smolin, and when I left Carbone Smolin, I went to Miramax for like a minute, and I was there like a year and a half as director of their photo stills, and that was a lot of fun, coming from being a graphic designer to being a director of photo stills.
So that means that you were basically going through like it's a movie production company, right?
Yeah, it was Miramax. It was like when they were doing, they had just finished Pulp Fiction, and I was there like 2 years after that.
And so you were going through like set stills by the set photographers?
Yeah, all the unit photographer, and then we would hire photographers, to shoot the posters and the marketing material. So that's
basically then your transition into TV guide.
Right.
Okay, because that seems like a pretty logical transition,
exactly.
Shooting all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And you met him through...
I met him through where I worked when I was a graphic designer, through Rick Smolin and Leslie Smolin.
Oh, that's right. You mentioned that earlier. Okay. And then also I want to mention the bathhouse.
Oh, right.
So you actually live downtown.
Yeah, we were in Tribeca for a long time, for about 10 years, and Eddie he didn't like having neighbors living in a co-op, so he wanted to find a building, and so we went looking for a building, something like a firehouse or something, and he found this house on 2nd Street that I didn't like. It was very vertical, and the Grateful Dead used to live there, and I was like, I don't want to live there, Eddie. So I found the bathhouse, and it's an old New York City public bathhouse. It says chiseled in stone on the cornice, free public baths of the city of New York. It's a building that was built in 1904, and it's in the East Village.
It's incredible.
And, when we saw it, the East Village was still a little rough around the edges.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. You guys got it at a time when it was...
Yeah, when it wasn't,
not as hip, maybe.
Rudy Giuliani, was, mayor then, and he was cleaning things up, but it still hadn't kind of quite turned yet. And there was a dip in the market, and nobody really wanted to... after we bought the building, like 10 people, like about 5 photographers said, I almost bought that building, but like it was covered in graffiti. It was a mess. And when we bought it, people were very concerned for us because they thought we had made this horrible, horrible mistake. But, it turned out we renovated it and made it into a photo studio on the bottom, and we live up above the shop.
It's an amazing location. I'm sure it's been renovated like crazy because it's beautiful now. I mean, that's at the time I was there. That's where we did the judging for the workshop.
Right.
And you've had a few, gatherings. And I've also been to a few photo shoots in the studios down below. So it's just bathhousestudios.com if anybody wants to go check them out. Beautiful, beautiful studios. I forget what you call those.
Psych.
Psych.
Yeah.
You got one of the big psychs and all sorts of space up there.
Yeah.
So, Bathhouse Studios. And have you been, where did you grow up?
Well, mostly Virginia. My dad was in the Air Force, so we moved around about every year, and then finally settled in Virginia.
Settled in Virginia. When did you move to New York?
1983. So I've been, oh my God. I've been here a long time.
32 years.
Oh, shit.
Because that's when I was born.
You're too good at math. Oh, come on. Oh, no.
I did. So it's been there as long as I've been alive, which is a little bit. But that's amazing. So you've seen a lot of transition in the city since you've been here, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Living down in the East Village where you live. So do you where do you see the future? You know, we're approaching year 30.
Yeah,
we're
year 30.
approaching the 30th year anniversary.
Right. That's a good question. So, you know, I'm not really sure. You know, people ask me, well, how has the workshop changed over the years? And I'm kind of like, you know, the workshop, everything has changed around the workshop. And the workshop has kind of like stayed the same. And, you know, you can like look through at the march of technology. You know, we used to shoot all film, and then we stuck our toe into digital, and then we stuck our, you know, then it became all digital, and then we stuck our toe into multimedia, and we were doing multimedia like crazy for a while with Brainstorm. And then, but basically, you know, the format of it kind of stays the same, and we experience it, you know, differently depending on who's there and what else is going on in the world.
Yeah. And I mean, exactly that too, because on 9/11,
right,
this is when, you know, you had a workshop, and it was just after that. I guess it would have been a month after almost. And instead of doing the regular team or assignments, you sent everyone to New York, right?
We actually did that on the anniversary, a year after. We pushed the workshop up to September, and we shot on the anniversary of 9/11.
And did you go into the city? How was that received?
I think it was fine. Everybody just came into the city for one day and shot for one day. We printed a book. We created a book. New York. Oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of it. Oh my God. But we actually printed a book of the images that came out of that day.
Okay.
So it was kind of like, all the students just came in that morning, shot the city, and went back, and it was, so it was that was a very different workshop because we covered New York City instead of Sullivan County.
And speaking of books, when I stayed, I had the privilege of staying at your farmhouse while I was producing, and on the coffee table I saw there was a amazing book of Eddie's work from Vietnam.
Right.
And this was a book that you worked on editing and producing. Is that correct? And you're working on another yet?
Yeah, more of a retrospective book that'll be out.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that book and the process of that. I mean.
Oh, well, yeah.
Like, were the edits already together, or did you like? She's like, nope. No,
it would have been. I would have loved for Eddie to stay alive and actually like look at his work and do things. I actually. All the work that I saw after he died, I had never, ever seen before. His ex-wife brought Eddie, before she moved down to Atlanta, she brought him all these negatives and images and trash bags that were in her garage and said, here, Eddie, I'm moving, you've got to take this stuff. And so a lot of that stuff just hadn't been gone through since Eddie took the pictures, which was a long, long time ago. So just trying to like figure out where to start on his work, I basically bit off the Vietnam chunk first because that made the most sense, because that picture that he took, the execution shot, the one that he's most known for, that seemed to be the logical place. So that's why the Vietnam book came first before the retrospective.
And so the retrospective is going to be more about his life, or his life in Vietnam, or
no? It's just more of his. It's more of his work, because his career spanned about like 50 years, and so Vietnam was only like
he's
3
known
years
for this
of it.
one shot,
right.
and if I remember correctly, he didn't like being known for that shot.
No, he didn't. And I'm sure he would never ever would have done that book ever in a million years, and he would never have put that picture on the cover of the book because.
And the story behind it is actually pretty interesting because there's actually a movie that was produced.
There's a documentary called An Unlikely Weapon, which is sometimes on Netflix and sometimes not. I can't figure that out, why it comes and goes on Netflix. But it's called An Unlikely Weapon, and it was my sister Cindy co-produced it, and it's if you want to find out more about Eddie the Man and a little bit about the workshop and a little bit about his work in general, it's a very good documentary.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and in that he talks a lot. They talk about that picture, which he hates,
right?
And the reason being is that the man he photographed was pretty much vilified for the rest of his life. He ended up moving to the States, if I'm correct.
Yeah, in Northern Virginia, and he ran a pizza restaurant, and
And they stayed friends.
They stayed friends over the years. Yeah, Eddie would go down at one. Friends, I mean,
acquaintances.
Yes,
You knew each other,
right? And Eddie would go down and visit him, and every once in a while. So,
yeah, that's just got to be a strange feeling to have that. I don't know, just to witness the types of things that he did witness, and was it so going from editing at TV Guide and Miramax, all these kind of like production and television related type things. What was it like going from that to this kind of like war torn photography?
Well, yeah, I've never worked at a newspaper or a news magazine, so for me the images were. But I have to tell you, now that I've gone through it, I mean, war pretty much looks the same. It's pretty ugly.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the conclusion that I've kind of come to.
There's nothing pretty about it.
No. And it's like, you think we'd learn a lesson, but I don't know. Anyway, but but it's fun going through his early AP stuff because he saved everything, and he's got like he didn't save anything. I think he did save somebody. He had people to help him organize himself, but like old AP flyers and circulars and original captions and things like that give the photos such context. And so that's the new book is being published at the University of Texas Press, but it'll be photos and some contextual ephemera to like.
When he was in Vietnam, he was shooting. Was it for AP?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now I'm having a brain fart. I forget who I was talking to about this, but they were talking about how back in those days you would go, you'd have the film, and they'd say, "There's the shot, snip, snip," and throw out the rest. Was that the case with Eddie's work?
No, they actually put a notch.
Okay,
that's better. They kept all of the negatives together in this little glassine thing, and you could always tell they're select because it wasn't a hole puncher, but something like that.
Right.
And they would notch it.
Yeah, I remember that's what I used to do because I basically got into photography right as just before the digital revolution.
Right.
So I remember that using the little clip.
So you've actually shot film.
I have.
That's very sweet.
Hey. More than most people can say.
No, I'm just teasing because it's so hard for me to believe that there are people that haven't shot film.
It is wild. Mm-hmm. Do you still feel like, do you prefer looking at negatives?
No, I don't. Just, I'll look at anything. And the material doesn't really matter. It's always about the picture. But, you do get a little, the quality of film sometimes, I miss that.
So can you give any advice to students maybe looking to get into the workshop or just students looking to have a great portfolio? What is it that obviously everything's subjective because you never know who's looking at what. But as a photo editor yourself, do you have any tips for the younger photographers in editing their portfolios and maybe specifically for the workshop? What's better to do? Right. Well,
we like to look at all photographers, not just photojournalists. Like, for instance, if you're a person that just does portraits, and they're done in a certain way. I think for us, like, we're looking at the work. We just want to know how you think. So if you have a story and we can see kind of the progression of the story, then we'll understand how you think. Or if you have a series of portraits, if you're a portrait photographer and there's something unique about your style or something, that people can feel what you're doing, then that's the way to do it. Once upon a time, it's not so much of a trend anymore. We would get like a standard photojournalist portfolio. They'd have single, sports, fire, police, politician.
Right.
And
it's like checking things off of a list.
Right. But people don't do that. But that was 10 years ago or so. But then people don't do that. So some people do it, but I think, they've gotten, they're more into the story. You've got 20 pictures, so you can tell a story in maybe like 10 of them. But honestly, it's very strange because it all depends on the work. Because, you could be sometimes like a piece of fashion or, more of an art person will come up. And if it somehow strikes us and tells some kind of story, just, people will look at it and go, check in.
I think that the feeling that the workshop has is to sort of foster that that unique style and to bring that out of a photographer. You seeing all of these different speakers, you know, like you had Platon speak,
Right.
which who really is inspiring to me as I do documentary and portraiture, and I really felt like I learned a lot from his stories. I mean, he is an amazing storyteller, and he talks about how he got these brief seconds out of like Al Pacino turning into The Godfather or something like that. All the way to James Nachtwey, Eugene Richards, who has, you know, a very unique style of presenting his work and all of that. So I think that you don't have, though it is photojournalism based, this workshop, it doesn't mean that you have to only share photojournalistic work, like you said, portraiture, even art photography. There are students that are definitely artists that have been in the workshop that I've met in the past.
Yeah.
So I think that that's really neat when you can actually shoot something in a different style and present that.
And some of these people like Kwaku Alston and Joe Puglias, they're celebrity shooters, and then they both went to the workshop, and so like people end up in different places.
Okay. So let's see here. Is there anything else that I haven't really mentioned about the workshop that? Oh yeah, we should mention all those folks that help with the workshop, like Miriam and
Miriam Evers is the producer. She's been the producer for about 3 or 4 years, and she's awesome. And
so she does she work full time, like basically out of the bathhouse, or is this like she does other things as well?
She does other things as well. She has a business.
I didn't know if it was like a full time. I mean, it seems like it would be, considering it's full time for at least a handful of months. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But she produces other workshops as well.
Yeah, she has her company, PhotoQuest Adventures, and she's right now in Finland.
Right now in Finland.
Right.
Oh man.
Yeah, covering the.
Is she watching?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know.
What time is it
maybe.
in Finland? She might be watching the. What do you call the lights up there?
Oh, the Northern Lights? Not Northern Lights.
No, I can't say it.
Aurora.
Yeah, thank you.
Aurora Borealis.
Thank you.
That's what it is. So I mean, and lastly, what I guess I'll say before I guess we can get off the whole kick of the workshop is the networking that takes place. Each year that I've been associated, not only just at the barn itself, but at your gatherings, there's been happy hours and all sorts of different, you know, gatherings of Eddie Adams alumni. You become an alumni. You become part of this club. So, you know, if you were just a student before you had this experience, afterwards you can easily reach out to TV Guide, Sports Illustrated, to any of these editors, anybody that's been affiliated, and say, hey, I'm Barnstorm, you know, EAW, you know, 20 alumni, and that's an immediate icebreaker. And so that's one of the biggest things I think that come from it is just the networking opportunity. And I'm sure you've seen that just for yourself, how everything's compounded over.
Right. Yeah.
27
it reverberates and
reverberates.
Yes. Thank you.
I'm going to help you with pronunciation today. It reverberates. Yeah.
Yes.
And not only with the amazing speakers and the staff and the leaders and whatnot, but also the students themselves. I have met many friends, peers who are still, you know, best friends in the industry who. We pass each other work when we can't handle work.
Right.
I'm actually a business partner with I'm actually going to be doing a workshop in Maui with one of my friends who is Barnstorm 17 alumni as well, Peter Lockley. And MauiWorkshop.com. Yeah, and we're also doing a scholarship contest for that. It's taking place at the Four Seasons in Maui, so it's really high-end luxury. And we're giving away a 5-night stay at the Four Seasons and workshop tuition. Just go to the MauiWorkshop.com/contest, and all you got to do is submit your favorite travel photo with a nice caption. So
wow. That's going to be great.
Yeah. So I hope people actually enter it because there's really no reason not to. And of course, you keep all your rights to the photos.
Right. Okay.
We never do anything like that. But yeah, I mean that's the amazing thing about what your workshop has done and what Eddie created for the industry.
And you know, I have to say, you know, he's been gone now for about 10 years, and you know. People continue to come, and you know the workshop couldn't happen because everybody donates their time. Everybody there that participates as a speaker or as a team leader, they all donate their time. So it's a place where everybody, you know, really wants to be, and you know, everybody there wants to be there.
Well, I mean, everybody, not only the students, because you get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of submissions,
Right.
but you also get people wanting to be on the black team. So I mentioned there's 10 teams of 10. That's colored teams. That's,
Right.
that's this orange team of mine. But
Right.
there's also the black team,
Right.
which is the helper-outers, essentially, the people that come up to the barn a week in advance to groom the place, to clean the place, to prepare it for hundreds of people to be coming through. And then closing everything down, there's security, there's parking, there's
cooking. And
then there's the white team.
They're led by Pete Pensky. He's probably, and a crew of photographer chefs.
That's the one thing that's amazing. Lucas Jackson was on the white team. The amazing thing about the workshop is it's like, you pay nothing to go there, and then all of a sudden it's like you've given this experience, and then you get home cooking by chefs that are photographers. They're like prize-winning photographers that are busting their ass in the kitchen all day while you're learning and meeting these people.
Yeah.
They're slaving. I mean, washing.
Yeah, for 250 people.
For 250 people.
I know.
And the food
and it's good.
The food is good. It's always so good.
Mm-hmm.
So, we tip our hats to the white team and the black team for doing this every year.
Yeah, and for all the speakers that take the time to come up there, because, it's really the most valuable thing that they can give to these people is time.
Yeah.
And they're very generous with their time.
Yeah. All right. Well, applications are being taken right now.
Yep.
So you guys can go here to eddieadamsworkshop.com, their website. You can click on the apply now. You can find out all about their sponsors, their about, home, learn about Eddie, find the multimedia, and you got to get them in. Do you know when the deadline is?
May 29th.
May 29th. So get your applications in by May 29th to be considered for.
Yeah, and you either need to be a student or a young professional with 3 years or less experience.
Okay.
Or if you're in the military,
you're in. I mean, not but
right.
you're.
We don't put a time limit on. A time limit on that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then let's see here. Yeah, so please go apply, everybody. And Eddie Adams Workshop, it's EA Workshop on Twitter and on, basically in Instagram, Twitter, and all that kind of stuff. So you can follow their social media. Photo Brigade, at Photo Brigade on all social media. Do you have social media? I mean, I know you're on Facebook, that's personally, but do you have like a Twitter?
Me personally?
Do you have the Twitter?
Yes, I do. I do have the Twitter.
What's your Twitter?
And the Instagram. Oh my God. I think it's Alyssa ADA.
Alyssa ADA.
Yeah.
If that's not right, we'll put it again below in the captions, or put a little annotation over this if she was wrong about that. So follow us, follow everybody on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the social. Apply to the Eddie Adams Workshop. Alyssa, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
I love your enthusiasm, and you made it easy for me. Thank you.
Great to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Thank you, everybody.